Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend. Now, you mentioned earlier in the podcast you had a story that you wanted to
the
share.
pep talk. Yeah.
Well, oh, right.
You said you dove into something, you bit off more than you could chew. And go ahead.
Well, I have two fun stories. So one is there was a employee there, not a dog trainer at Cesar's, not a dog trainer, but an employee at the ranch. Mm-hmm. And she had a dog, and it was eating an apple during one of our team meetings, and I went to go grab the apple, and it went to bite me, and it was a little puppy, so it wasn't, but it was my first honest, real experience with resource guarding. And I took the apple, and later Cesar was there, and I told him, oh, by the way, I went to go take the apple from, I don't remember the dog's name, the dog. And he just looked at me, he goes, well, why did you take the apple away wrong? Like, it wasn't like I got bit, like it was a light bit, it didn't puncture, anything, but he was like, it wasn't the dog's fault at all. You took the apple away wrong. And I resonate with that. Like, because that's like, I grew up where like, if a dog misbehaved and he wasn't mad or anything, he was like, well, I'll show you how to take an apple away next time. But like, go slower, take your time. And I will say resource guarding is one of my favorite conversations to have with dogs, because you can see the dog psychology moment to moment to moment to moment. Like, you wait there and you wait for the dog to relax, then you get to move in. Like those are some of my favorite conversations. And I remember the next time during a fundamentals workshop, there was a German Shepherd that I had known that was a big resource guarder, and it picked up a ball in this dog park. And the client, like everyone from the workshop is there, they're all outside, they're watching, and this dog picked up the ball, and people who didn't know this dog had resource guarding issues were like, get the ball, get the ball, get the ball. And I was like taking my time, and from far away, I mean, I knew from 5 feet away, this dog and I were having a conversation, and I was really taking my time. And it was, and trainers who have way more experience, way more talent, way higher up in this realm at this workshop were like, go get the ball, like, why aren't you going fast? I didn't let that nervousness get to me. And I looked at them, I go, I'm taking it away the right way. Like, and then they stopped getting on me, but it was like, I didn't get bit that day because Cesar showed me how to properly take the apple away. I remembered. And it became, any time that I've rushed for human is when I make the mistake. Like,
anytime you get cocky or you rush.
Yeah. So anyways, I just always love the story of like, well, why'd you take the apple wrong? But when I really messed up and he had to give me a good pep talk, it was one of the worst embarrassing moments probably.
Oh no.
But so at Cesar's Fundamentals, people from all over the world, pay to go to these things. They're like 3 days, 4 days. And Cesar has a llama, Lorenzo, who is a real dick. He has other llamas now, but Lorenzo, we used to work him in classes, and he is pushy. Like, if you want to learn spatial pressure, Lorenzo is your guy. Because if you let him invade your space, and this is why Cesar always uses them, if you let him invade your space, he starts getting more and more pushy. But if right away, the moment he comes in, you're like, enough, then he respects you and gives you space. So he's a good example for spatial pressure. So I had never handled Lorenzo too much, but this is me jumping in when I'm not ready for shit. This is like my life. So I in the tent, you have to bring Lorenzo in the tent, and you have to be really confident, because Lorenzo was confident. Cesar was in there, and Kim and Jaime, who normally handle him, I was like, I'm going to do it. I can do it today. Like, I'm going to do it. And they were like, okay. And they like going, I was so nervous. Didn't even know what I was doing. I just wanted to be part of this, like, work this part for whatever reason. I brought him in, and Cesar just knows that I'm nervous right away. And so he's not the kind of guy to be like, he's the kind of guy to be like, why are you nervous right now? Like, stop being nervous, And so Lorenzo's whole energy completely changed because I was nervous. So, and so he wasn't as pushy as he normally would be. And then, so Cesar just goes, you're nervous, stop being nervous, in front of this whole tent. And I was like, okay. And then, like, and there wasn't anything too huge about it, but it was like, why did I think I could handle a llama that day in a tent with like 50 people? Like, I just wanted to do it. And so I walked out. I don't think I cried, but it was just, I felt like I let Cesar down. I felt like I did a bad job. And he came over to me afterwards. He came out and gave me like a little back rub. And he was like, we have to be what we preach. Like, we have, if we're going to tell these people to be calm and confident, then you need to be calm and, like, don't grab his leash Lorenzo's leash llama until you're calm and confident. Like you can't pretend here. Like, so if you know, and probably none of the other students knew I was nervous, but you can't fake Cesar. Like he's all about energy. He knows, you know. And he gave me like a little massage. And I remember coming home that day and be like, I like fucked up. I jumped in the pool and I couldn't swim and all stuff. And my husband was like, I just heard you got a pep talk and a massage from Cesar. So I don't know what's wrong with this.
He's like, I'm a little jealous. Just
yeah. He's like, I don't know what's wrong. But yeah, that was you know, but I mean, I learned my lesson, but that was when it was like, you can't fake this. Like, and at least acknowledge that you're nervous. Because if I would have said, actually, I'm nervous, I don't want to do this, someone else take it. That would have been way better for me than for me to pretend I knew what I was doing, to pretend that I was confident to impress people rather than acknowledging how I actually felt in the moment.
Yep.
And in that way, keeping everyone safe. Like it could have actually gone bad handling this huge animal and not being in the energy or mindset to do it.
Right. No, I think you bring up some amazing nuances. So like I started off as like a Cesar, you know, every episode, watched them all. Right. And then I also grew up on a ranch with horses and llamas and goats and all that stuff. And so you bring up these nuances that I, in my own personal career, and I won't speak on behalf of all other trainers, but I guess just something to think about is the nuances of energy, right? The nuances of, you know, I always tell my employees, you have to generate the energy you want the animal to have, right? And that's whether, you know, you want them to be playful. So if I have a really down dog, sometimes I have to be more up and confident. And if your dog needs to be calm, then you need to be calm also, right? And so, but there's these nuances. You were saying things about, you know, I just want to touch on them, and maybe it turns into a conversation, but like energy, you know, some people don't like the Eastern, you know, the energy hokey pokey kind of stuff, but it's intention, right? It's this intention. So that's how I define it to some people. I say, you can read when someone's full of shit. You can read when someone's happy with you. You can read when someone's upset. You can read intention very, very clearly. And the big thing I wanted to just talk, you know, maybe put a little ripple and hopefully it starts a conversation, is just talk about like, when I was younger and really into Cesar, that was like my MO. And I remember even in the hardest times of growing up, right, being a teenager, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, like all of that whole time, I remember those teachings teaching me something as regard to, maybe I don't know what calm assertive means exactly, but I think I know how to fake it. Or at least I know what I'm searching for, and by mirroring and emulating and seeing, but also becoming more aware and conscious of your ego, your feelings, like all these things are happening when you're trying to control your energy, which is really cool.
Well, here's an interesting one. I want to toss this in there too. I'm going to work backwards on that. So here's an interesting one for me, because I think you're right. Like if you don't know exactly what that is, but still somehow you know when you're in it, and still somehow you know when somebody thinks you're in it. You ever have that weird kind of feeling where you're like, oh, you think I'm like, you know, you think I'm totally in control of this right now. But working backwards a little.
Parenting, by the way.
Working backwards a little bit further. You know, you're right about that. A lot of people do have that like sour taste in their mouth about the like, they consider it hokey and you know, the energies and the this and that. But even in a very like real sense, no matter how scientific or analytical you really want to get about it, what percentage of communication is nonverbal?
80.
Yeah.
That's a lot, you know, and it's easily observable. You know, I tell that to people all the time. I feel like I tell that to my girlfriend all the time, even for things that have nothing to do with dogs. Even if she's explaining to me a hard day that she had at work with the, you know, whoever this employee that's not like doing what they're supposed to be doing or whatever, you know, and it's easy to make a point. I'll just give her eye contact for like 2 seconds too long, and she stops talking about what she's talking about and is like, blah, blah, blah. What, you know? And I'm like, see how easy that is. It's almost fun to play that game with people. Like it sounds weird, I guess, but it's super real. And so is, by the way, you know, if somebody's like a fast talker, you talk a little faster, you're kind of meeting them where they are. And what I tell people all the time is, for all of the, I know we've all heard this too then, right? Like, oh, dogs have this like sixth sense. They just know, like horses. That's a big thing with horses. They know when you're afraid. They know when everything else, you know, what I explain to people is like, the dog doesn't just have this magical sense. He just sees you. He just looks at you. And even for human beings with language, 80% of communication is nonverbal. What do you think that is for the dog?
Yeah.
He knows if you're nervous because you're showing him that you're nervous. And I love to give people this example. The weird thing about human beings is we all know, like we as adults can all agree right now. If somebody were to come home and be like all flustered and you're okay, oh, fine, and clearly you're not fine. But
I got everything under control.
Right. And obviously you're not, but at the same time, it's like, well, he said he's fine. And so we all like, why do we play that game when we obviously know better?
Yeah.
So for dogs, I'm like, okay, so imagine you do that. Only the dog didn't even hear you say you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he think you're fine? There's nothing really hokey about it. He's just watching you.
Right. Well, I think that is the cool thing with like dogs and kids is you can't fake how you're feeling, And I actually had, but I do know that the dogs that lived on the ranch that were like from Cesar's show that weren't adoptable, I got really lucky because I got to like work with them. And there was a front of the pack, which everyone thinks that they, everyone thinks they have an alpha or whatever. And you realize it's like the most sensitive dog ever. It's just getting too much time. And he was like, you can't fake that shit with him. Like if I was going to go put the leash on, I better be confident in putting the leash on, because he was also reactive. Like he couldn't live in the house Cesar took him. So I feel like dogs, and I feel this way about kids, because like if like Olivia is a really cool kid in the sense of like she returns what you say to her. So like but it's also like if this kid is frustrated and I'm frustrated, like the reality, my husband and I talk about this all the time because we're not perfect parents, and we always say like, well, we'll always talk through things, or like we'll always apologize. We'll always, like if I yell and I'm frustrated because we're human and we're going to have these moments of not being zen all the time. All I can do it afterwards be like, I'm sorry. Like I'll literally do it a moment after. I'll be like, Olivia, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Mommy is getting frustrated because I'm realizing how late it is. And I'll like quickly talk through it, but like I've seen it where like I have been frustrated with her and she just like looks back like you look like, she doesn't say these words, but in her head I'm like, she's like, you look stupid right now.
How old is she?
Like she's 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She probably is saying it in her head.
Yeah. Like she's like like I feel like she's
a poopy head right now.
Yeah, like I just feel like she's like, but you're not calm. Like, like she's just like, like, but
that's so funny. Kids are so smart. It's crazy.
They're so cool.
Crazy smart. It's interesting. Yeah. Like that too. I mean, I don't have kids, but I'm Hispanic. I've helped raise 14 trillion kids living in my household. So, poor McKenna, single child. Whenever we go to my mom's house, it is culture shock. And, and she always makes the same joke to everybody, like, Mariano's going to be such a good dad. I'm like, you're goddamn right, because I've been changing diapers since I was in diapers. But anyway, but I do find it interesting how in tune kids are, and I find it interesting how easy kids are, like super easy. Isn't that weird? They're like crazy easy, and people get so flustered. Like all of my sisters, all of them have like 3 or 4 kids apiece, and I'll go and visit, and it'll be something as simple as this, Hey, I'm here. What are we gonna do? Barbecue, whatever. All right, let's go to the store and get this and that. And then my nephew, oh, Mom, I want to go. And she's like, and it's like such a hassle. And I'm like, what? Jacob, get in the car. Like, what's the problem? And it seems
says the guy who gets to leave them and is not living with them.
But but hang on. But I have to give myself credit because I'm also the guy that they send the kids to live with for a period of time when they're getting out of control.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, kids are like really easy in the sense that we take them to the store and I just give them stuff to do. I notice like when you treat a kid kind of like an adult in a sense
of dog.
Like,
a dog.
You throw them in the crate. Yeah. Throw my e-collars on. We're good. But I treat the kids. This has always been my secret. Is I treat the kids like they're
adults.
Well, like not like they're because they're not they're adults, but I treat them like they're a part of the team, then I need your help.
Totally.
So we'll go to the store and they're asking me questions that drive me insane. So I'm like, hey, come here. I need you to go. And I'll even make something seem more like serious than it is just to make them feel like I'm doing a real thing.
Totally.
So
they
I'll
want
be like,
a role.
Right. So I'll be like, hey, look, go get the bread, but not this one. Make sure it's not this one. Go get and I don't give a shit either way,
Yeah.
And then they go get it and I'm like, there you go. And even if it's the one I said not to, I'm like, that's it. You're right. You bring it, and it makes it super simple. But the downside, like the hard one is my sister and I lived together for a long time. And, she had, I'm not going to put her business out there, but she had like a really hard time with just family stuff.
Yeah.
And excuse Hades making noise. There was a time when she just wasn't quite emotionally capable of dealing with a young, like 8-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was one of these, like, Jacob, go clean your room. But mom, Jacob, clean, you know, and it was this whole back and forth. And then she would just like flip out, you know, and like scream and all this stuff. And she would get mad because I'd be like, Jake, just go clean your room. And he would just go, you know, and I would just explain to her, all I'm doing is just not freaking out. If you freak out, why would he listen to you? You're freaking out. You know, I wouldn't listen to you. You know,
but I would say also, because we see this as dog trainers, right?
I don't even think I was training dogs at the time.
Well, no. But I'm just, as the dynamic goes, like, I can get a dog to listen to me like this in a minute, right? Versus they've had 2 or 3 years of counter conditioning and opposition and arguing with their parents and vice versa. And so sometimes it's easier for us to come in because we're novel to just be like, hey, kids, do this thing.
I agree with you, but I lived with them. I was there for his birth. Like my sister Christina, I remember she cried in her 3rd or 4th pregnancy when I couldn't be there when the baby was born. Like I lived with them, you know, so dude, I knew them both. I knew, like, I was part of everything. So I found it, and I know she wasn't quite in a good place at the time, you know?
Yeah.
And it was family stuff. Like I felt the pain and everything too, but it's like, look, man, I mean, the kid needs input. You don't need to yell, just tell him like, hey man, go clean your room, you know?
Totally.
But it was fascinating to see.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about kids, and I feel this way about dogs, is like, because although I have my basic things, right? Loose leash walking, super important. Crate, super important. Like teaching a dog to be chill, rewarding, calm, super important. Like there's basic stuff. But what I'm going to do for the like entitled little dog that's resource guarding versus the anxious German Shepherd that's just trying to get space from everything because it's afraid, a little different.
Right.
Will the basics be there? Yes. Will I probably do more condition relaxation work? You know, like this is why I don't think there's like, I think you can get into trouble when you treat every dog the same, because
for sure.
then you can actually, like, if you're, you know, and this is why I'm always hesitant to ever talk about like corrections or things like that on Instagram. I don't think it's bad when trainers do, but I don't want someone to like do that and cause more anxiety in their dog, more, you know, a German Shepherd I recently had was like told to go hot in the e-collar often. He started redirecting on parents, like, and then, you know, and so it's like, just being careful. The reason why I think it's so cool with dogs and kids is like really looking at them at an individual. What are their strengths and what do they need help with? Like, so my sister has 3 kids. I only have 1. I have a niece who, I hate to like call kids easy and hard, because that's not how I want to do it. But my niece is like, I mean, she will sit still with you for hours. You could take her to the grocery store, no problem. Like, I remember the first time going to the grocery store with her, because Olivia is like, she climbs aisle rows. Like I walked out. Yeah. I walked out of she's a Mowgli of a child. I mean, that's why, like, the picture I have is like, she's hanging upside down. Right.
Oh yeah.
Like I walked down our backyard and she was on the roof of our garage, because it's not attached. Like she's, you know, so in a store, I have to constantly make sure she hasn't run off and like, and made friends with the stranger, right? Where my niece, I kept turning around, she was always under my feet, like she was always packed in, like just right next to me, like
healing,
healing. Yeah. And so she is like, if I don't have to talk firm with her, I talk really soft to her. And I was actually doing virtual learning with her, and she couldn't like pronounce a word. I was like, girl, you got this. Like, what is it? Like, let's do it. Like, what is it? And she just started bawling. And like by me using that tone is too much, where like Olivia, I need to be like, hey, working breed, husky, pay attention. What is this? Like, you know, and demanding. And so all 3 of my sister's kids are so uniquely different in how she has to talk to them. All the basics are there. The structure is there, needing bedtime, right? Like all the basics are there, but how to address each one. Like I joke that Max, her oldest, and Olivia are working breeds. Like you give those kids jobs and they will impress you.
Yeah.
Like Olivia has a sticker chart, and she is so proud of herself at the end of the day, putting those stickers on. If she gets the amount of stickers, she gets something from the treasure box. But if we don't have that, she's
all over the place. Yeah.
She's a shit show, you know, like, and if you get firm with her, she gets firm right back. Like like the other day I was like, Olivia, I can't find my glasses. She's like, well, those are your responsibilities, so you're going to find them. And I was like, okay.
It's like, dang.
You're like, well, you're not wrong, but you know.
I know.
I was like, well, I help you
that
sometimes.
was her really eloquent way of being like, not my problem.
Yeah.
It was her way of being like, remember last week when I couldn't find my shoes and you were like, those are your shoes, they're your responsibility, you better go find them. I just got that taste back.
Oh shit.
I love that. I don't want my girlfriend to hear me, but I'm excited to have kids. And like, I like that kind of thing.
I love that she's a single kid and she found you. I think that's so cute.
That is
funny. Yeah. That
poor. It's gonna be a rude awakening.
I know. I'll tell you what. Like, it was the funniest conversation that I had to have with everybody because, of course, we met, through Tinder, like all the new things, and it actually worked out. And
I know a lot of friends that's worked out.
I think so far I'm the only person I know that we're going on like year 3, or no, we're going on year 3 in some months.
Nice.
Some change.
Something. Yeah.